In its bid to tackle climate change, Singapore wants to halve the emissions it produces by 2050 from its peak in 2030, with a view of achieving net zero emissions as soon as viable in the second half of the century.
The country will also commit to an absolute target of 65 million tonnes of carbon dioxide by 2030. Chairman of the Inter-Ministerial Committee on Climate Change, Hean, says these targets will be submitted to the United Nations later this year. Brandon Tanoto tells us more.
Setting out a clear long-term strategy will facilitate a well-managed transition to a low-carbon future for Singapore, said Senior Minister Chee during the Committee of Supply debate. However, concerns were raised over the possible economic impact of such a commitment.
Will it add to the cost of doing business in Singapore and therefore drive away some investors?
Our climate policies and strategies are carefully and thoroughly considered. At the same time, we are not exclusively focused on climate change. We look at realistic and practical policies and measures we can implement, taking into account the best available science and technology and fully integrated with the larger context of the entire range of challenges we face in our national policy framework.
And so Singapore will look to transform its industry, economy and society by, for example, pressing ahead with solar deployment. It will also draw on technologies like carbon capture and work with the international community in areas like carbon markets and regional power grids. While Singapore's impact on global emissions is small at around 0.11%, the effect of climate change on the country is disproportionately large and existential. He pointed to the impact of rising sea levels on low-lying Singapore.
In 2011, we raised the platform level for all new reclamation projects by an additional 1 metre, from 3 metres to 4 metres above the Singapore height datum. The highest high tide ever recorded in Singapore is about 2 metres above the Singapore height datum. For new key facilities, such as Changi Airport T5, we are raising the platform level even higher to at least 5 metres above SHD. Marina Barrage, which was completed in 2008, already provides some flood protection for our city, but we are planning to see whether we can raise that further and even increase the size of the pumps.
In his National Day rally speech last August, Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong estimated that $100 billion may be needed over 100 years to protect Singapore against rising sea levels. And in last week's budget statement, Deputy Prime Minister Heng Swee Keat announced a new coastal and flood protection fund with an initial injection of $5 billion.